And Sean is asking, can you please explain the key differences among the four gospels?
So I love this question, and I'll keep it really brief because honestly, you could go really, really deep with this. But I remember back when I was in college and I was taking a theology class, and we were talking about the four gospels, and the way I described it was like because they are four very different perspectives. And the way I kind of described it in my essay was that it's like kind of like why would God have four gospels about basically the same story, which is Jesus. And what I kind of said was like if you saw a car accident, if there was a car accident in an intersection, and somebody was standing on each of the four corners, all have a very different perspective of the exact same event. And so, but my only thought was that, John almost wasn't paying as much attention to the accident, but was kind of looking out into the distance. And so, kind of seeing, what was leading up to, as well as, what would follow the events of this accident. So, although obviously the coming of Christ is much better than a car accident, it was a good thing, not something tragic. So when it comes to the four gospels, though, when you look at each of the perspectives, and you look at first, it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The book of Matthew was written basically with the idea, or what we understand is there's a lot of Old Testament theology in there, and there's a lot of prophecies, messianic prophecies about Jesus that are pointed out. Matthew really seemed to be speaking to the Jews at that time. He was, bringing out like, when Christ was on the cross and he, says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46, he's actually pointing back to the Old Testament, Psalm chapter 22, where it's, a prophecy about Jesus. And so, there's a lot of those kinds of things in the book of Matthew. So basically, it looks like the book of Matthew kind of points back, or is written in a way tailored to um, the way a Jewish person would understand. It starts with, the lineage, who begat so and so, which would be very important to a Jew. They would understand that he would need to be of the line of David. And so, anywho, that's kind of the summary of the book of Matthew. The next book is Mark, and this is kind of interesting because Mark is actually the shortest of the Gospels. It's almost kind of a bullet point of events, so it's just kind of like very historical, and so just kind of that personality of somebody who just kind of got all the facts. And so, if you just want to know a lot of facts about what happened, the book of Mark is actually a really great resource for that, as far as the events of just the life of Christ, just kind of what happened in the coming um, and events in Jesus's life. Now, when it goes to the book of Luke, it's a little bit different because Luke is actually written by Luke, who is we believe is a physician, and he was actually, according to historical um, research, he wasn't a Jew himself. He may have been the only non-Hebrew who wrote any of the New Testament, and so the book of Luke was written more with the idea of kind of a non-Jew in mind. It was written in a way that somebody who was of Jewish descent, or as well as not of Jewish descent at that time, might understand a little bit better. And so, yes, it does, have some of the lineage of Christ in there as well, but it points back to, back to the beginning. Is what I understand from from seeing this from memory. And so, but the book of Luke, again, it's, written in a way where it's kind of more tailored to the non-Jew. And then there's the book of John, and John has his own take on this, and it's more than anything, I feel like John is just trying to express God's character in this and convince you of the love of Jesus, and really get to know Jesus as a person, not just the events of what happened, but get to know Jesus for who he really is, and just him as a loving God, and him as, first of all, the creator. That's how the book begins. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then you go down to verse 14, you realize that this Word is none else than Jesus. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And so, again, the book of John seems to be pointing you to the fact that Jesus is your creator and he's your redeemer, and you need to get to know him because he's a God who loves you. And so it's almost like John was last in the 4 Gospels to kind of be the one to be like, "All right, now that you've seen the facts, whether you're Jew or non-Jew, you know him, you've gotten to know the stories, but now know him as your God, your creator, your savior." And so that would be kind of the as fast as I could summarize, the 4 Gospels. And Jay or Wendy, any other thoughts on that?
Well, that was very good. So yeah, maybe quick recap. So Matthew is sort of the Jewish perspective, and it's emphasizing the Jesus's lineage as fulfilling
And the
the messianic prophecies and
Mhm.
line of David. Mark is sort of like Jesus is just so efficient, powerful, and supposedly people say that's really catering to the Gentile, and like the Romans would have eaten that up.
Mm,
And then
mm,
Luke was about the humanity of Christ and trying to alleviate suffering and help the poor, condemning the rich, in a sense. And then we come to John, who just so clearly is emphasizing the divinity of Christ. So, and then
mhm,
I think there's one of the things that's interesting of Catholicism is just the symbols they have, where they look at how in Revelation you see the lion, the you see lion, like an ox, you see a,
a man and
eagle and a man. Yeah, these like the
mhm,
seraphim
4
or
creatures.
the four creatures are described with these characteristics. And the Catholic Church, church I know more so than probably any other church, says, this is emphasizing the four Gospels and covered these different
Mm,
traits where the lion is the kingship of Christ, the um, ox, sort of his strength and power, like we find in Mark, and then his humanity brought out in Luke, and then the eagle representing Christ's divinity.